Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the Arkansas Education Association's hashtag We Hear You Listening Tour. This is our way to celebrate National Teacher Appreciation Week, and I hope that you are all enjoying that this week throughout our state. But as you know, in Arkansas, we don't just celebrate National Teacher Appreciation Week. We celebrate National Educator Appreciation Week. And to give you a little bit of history, Teacher Appreciation Week, Educator Appreciation Week, and today is National Teacher Appreciation Day, the first Tuesday in the month of May. That started because of an educator in western Arkansas, Miss Maddie White Woodridge, in 1944, wrote letters to Washington, D.C., stating that we needed to have a day to commemorate all of the wonderful work that educators do. And in 1953, Eleanor Roosevelt was successful in convincing Congress to adopt a day for educators. And so today is National Teacher Appreciation Day and Educator Appreciation Day. You know, being an educator is one of the hardest jobs in the world, and it's never been harder than now. I deeply appreciate our panel of AEA members who have joined us to share their thoughts, experiences, and challenges associated with working in schools during the past few years. Did you know that education is one of the oldest professions in the world? It started with Confucius in 561 BC. So thank you for being part of the oldest professions in the world. I am Carol Fleming, a speech-language pathologist in the Little Rock School District, currently serving as president of the Arkansas Education Association. AEA is a nonprofit, nonpartisan professional organization representing Arkansas educators since 1869. Another piece of history, if you did not know, we were started by the Arkansas Department of Education. And we were started so that we could provide professional development and training for educators to ensure that they were staying up to date on the newest techniques and education trends in order to best meet the needs of our students. We are part of the largest labor union in the country with over 3 million members. We work together to ensure educators like you have a stronger voice. That is why we are here this evening to hear your voice. We know educators are the experts on what our students need. We want you to be heard and respected, and we are live streaming this event to encourage other districts to follow suit and hold conversations of their own. I'm pleased tonight to introduce you to our guest, Dr. Kiffany Pride, Assistant Commissioner of Learning Services with the Arkansas Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. Dr. Pride.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much, President Fleming, for this invitation. I am delighted to be here today to be a part of your We Hear You Listening Tour. I'm an educator myself. This is my 26th year in education. Started here in Little Rock School District. And so I'm just elated to be here to hear your voices and to be able to think about how we can elevate our leadership support and service to our educators in the state of Arkansas. And so I want to say to those educators and classroom teachers out there, thank you. When I think about educators, I think about three things, and I wanted to write them down to be sure I said them. As an educator, I think about the level of commitment that it takes to be an educator. You know, the dedication to show up every day and to be committed to groups of students. And so that's very admirable. And when I think of educators, I also think about the fact that they're resilient. No matter the situation, and we saw that through the pandemic, we are resilient. And we are thankful and want to elevate the appreciation this week for our educators for doing that. And also, the last word that I think about when I think about educators that I had the privilege of being taught by and nurtured by, inspiring. So thank you for being inspiring. You motivate, you engage, and you mentor wherever necessary. So we appreciate you, and I'm just thankful to be here today, and I'm going to be actively listening and taking notes. So thank you, President Fleming, again, for this invitation.
Thank you, Dr. Pride. And oh my gosh, I love your words, commitment, resilience, and inspiring. I had to write those down. You know, we both have committed ourselves to writing down notes because we know that you are the experts and we want to hear from you. We know that over the past few years, we've seen a lot with education in our schools and with our students and in our communities. And we want to be able to hear from you to raise the voices of the educators so that we can do what's best for our students. But you have been on the front lines. You have experienced it. I've been traveling the state, but I need to hear what's going on, particularly in your schools and your communities. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to turn this over to you, our panelists, our experts, and we're going to let you start with introductions. Tell us who you are, where you work, what you do, and what brought you into the field of education.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Bruce. I am the Academy Coach and Perkins Coordinator for the North Little Rock School District. I'm housed in North Little Rock High School, even though I'm technically supposedly part of central office, but I'm not. I work more with students and with teachers. I came into education starting off post-secondary, and I kind of fell into secondary by accident. My passion is with workforce development and career and technical education. I believe that learning reading, writing, arithmetic only goes so far if you do not know how to apply that into the workforce. And I tell people this all the time. It does not matter if you graduate high school and go to college, you're going to work. If you graduate high school and don't go to college, guess what? You're still going to work. So everything that we do within the classroom must lead to some type of skills-based learning to teach people what to do with the information that they have learned in the classroom.
Good afternoon. My name is Roy Vaughn. I am a 18-year educator. I teach at Little Rock Central High, and I am a journalism and photography teacher there. I do the award-winning PICS yearbook. Shout out to my kids who do a wonderful job for me each year. I became an educator to inspire people like me. As a black male, I didn't see my first black male teacher until I was in high school. And I feel like we have to, in order to see something and feel like you can be something different, you have to see something different. And seeing black educators in the classrooms can truly make a difference in people's lives. You know, throughout my entire educational experience, being a student and now as a teacher, I can truly say that educators have shaped my life more than any other person in the world.
Good afternoon. My name is Latoya Morgan, and this is my 14th year in education. I'm currently a media specialist at Carver Magnet School, and my journey into education was a little different because actually I wanted to be a respiratory therapist, but that didn't work out. And I got a position at the Arkansas School for Math and Sciences, and one of my students, she told me, she said, "Miss Latoya, I think you'll be a good teacher." And I was like, really? And so I entered the MAT program at UCA, and my journey began. I fell in love with my students. I fell in love with their families, and I fell in love with helping them evolve. And that's why I'm in education.
Wow. I think they hit every single one of those words that you had said. So we're going to start this discussion with a couple of topics, and I'd like to begin by allowing you, when we bring up the topics, make sure you pass the mic amongst yourselves so that we can hear your voices. But you know, throughout this ongoing pandemic, America's educators have shown that they are committed to help their students thrive. So what we would like to know is, what has it been like for students, educators, to be on the front lines of this public health crisis? And more importantly, how are you doing?
One word: confusing. I think rules have changed consistently, not just at a national level, you know, mask, no mask, you know, who's vaccinated, who's not. It's deeper than that when it comes to the school level, because in the buildings, we're concerned with what do we do next? how do because I was still classroom when COVID first hit, and here I am doing a manufacturing course. How in the world do I do career in tech with half of my students at home, the other half in the classroom, and be able to give a quality education? And not just with the quality education, just look at your rubrics. Like, how do I grade a student at home and be fair as I am with a student that is still in the classroom? So having to do that, and having administrators try to figure out how to navigate between the two, trying to get the feedback, trying to get adequate professional development. And so we are confused as what is required of us. Because this didn't just start with the pandemic. The pandemic just opened the crack that was already there. It just let everything just come on through. Education as a whole has been cracking for a while, but this right here really just opened it up, and it exposed some of the issues we've been dealing with, and in many cases we've been crying out for years. So what we need more so than anything is clarity. Clarity in our expectations from administration and from the state. We need to have clear communication to parents and stakeholders as far as what they're looking for from the school system and with the parents. We need also a way to update what we have been doing. And when I say that, I don't just mean new technology, because you can buy new computers. They're going to be out of date every 18 months anyhow. When I say that, we need techniques that work. We've changed, from blooms to depth of knowledge. So what are we doing now? What is the next thing? And if we consistently change, how do we know what we're doing is effective? We need updated data. We need data to show that the processes that we are doing now are effective for the workforce. As I say, I'm very biased toward career and technical education. And so if we see that the way people are training the workforce does not match up with the way we are training in the classroom, how can we have adequate expectations? Because it's not just a matter of not being able to get people to come work in education. We see those shortages across the nation. So what is it that we can do from a structured standpoint, dealing with legislation, with standards from the Department of Ed, all the way to building level administration to the classroom, to say what we're doing works and it is proven that it's worked? So does it require a study starting with Department of Ed? Does it require legislation? Where does that start? And once we're able to say what we're doing and what we're studying and that is effective, then we can really move forward.
Well, when the pandemic first started and we were pushed out of the schools, teachers had to come up with a way to pivot and still teach all in a week. I think we answered that call pretty well. We worked hard, we did what we were supposed to do, and then the next year came. And I felt like when that next year came, there were so many discussions around what was adequate education for students, what teachers should have been doing, how to adequately instruct students, and all of that. And nobody really ever asked the teachers what they wanted. All the decisions were being made at the top and none at the bottom. And we understand that teachers should not be the bottom level. However, things get piled on teachers. Teachers don't give the ideas back up. And I feel like that's an issue. And then going into this year, I really felt like people just did not listen to educators at all. We were begging for safer learning environments for our kids. We were begging for a better understanding of how we were to teach in school classrooms that were packed with students. COVID was still running rampant at the beginning of the year, and it really felt like the cries of teachers literally fell on deaf ears. Nobody listened. There were educators who got really sick. Some even passed away. We had students getting really sick, and nobody ever thought about the mental stress and anguish that causes and puts on a teacher or on a custodian who has to now do extra work in order to maintain our buildings. They never thought about the mental anguish and stress, even on a principal having to make hard decisions. because the decisions were being piled onto us. So everyone seemed to have been making decisions about us without us. And all they had to do was really ask, and they would have created a more open environment for us to converse. However, that never happened. Now, when we talk about the long-term effects of educational gaps, nobody's asking teachers about what we would like to see happen with those gaps. There have been no redirection. There's been no redirection of the curriculum to accommodate for educational gaps that may be there. We're still expected to perform at pre-pandemic levels when we're not dealing with the same type of student or the same level of preparation for the students. And yes, I know we as educators want to get them there. Nobody is saying that we don't. However, we have to be given the time to teach, but also we have to be given the latitude to do what we have to do to make sure that students are adequately learning and carrying out and meeting the standards that have been set forth by the state.
Well, I will say we were all waiting. There were a lot of things that were happening in our country during that time that was polarizing. And frankly, I didn't want to go back because I knew that those elephants that were in the room were not going to be addressed. So today, I'm doing okay today. Today is a good day, but it's been very challenging for both our students, for educators, for families, for everyone. I've been very stressed. Like my stress level is probably at an all-time high. And I've been trying to find ways to navigate through that. And while doing that, still meet the needs of my students. I'm very frustrated with some legislators because laws are being passed that directly affect us while we're in the classroom teaching our hearts out. And sometimes those things go on and we have no idea that it's going on until it goes down. It went down and we're like, huh? So it's like the powers that be are fighting against us when we're busy building the future. And we have yet to have anyone say, here's a chair, pull it up, come to the table, let's talk. No one is asking us any questions, or you're asking us questions, but you're not really hearing us. So like kids are being seen, but not heard. Educators are being seen, but not heard. We know what best practices are. We practice them on a daily basis. People in higher up positions are making all these decisions and have never taught one day in a school or have came out and volunteered. The plan, what was the plan? There was no plan. It was a plan that the state told you that you had to have X, Y, and Z done. But who talked about the social emotional learning of the students? Who built the capacity of the teachers to deal with the social emotional learning of those students? Where is that plan? Meanwhile, I'm attending funerals of students that I have taught. I'm looking over into caskets. And then I have to go back to school and I have to teach. Where's the support? Where's the mandate for our mental health, our students' mental health, and our parents' mental health? Where is it at? So how are you supposed to learn? So right now in this country, Do you know what the number one thing that is killing students or kids right now? You know what that is? It's guns. Guns. And it goes back to legislation. These decisions are being made. People are putting money in their pocket, but we are not preparing the future.
Just piggybacking on what Latoya was saying, as an educator, I talked about the social and emotional toll that COVID has caused, but in even talking about the gun violence in the Little Rock School District, I know of at least 5 students, high school students, who have been murdered. 2 of them in my building, 1 died of natural causes. I've never, as an educator, had to see 3 17-year-olds buried in one school year in one building. 3 other students from another building, all buried in this school district, and nothing really being talked about, no grief counseling being offered really to teachers who have to really deal with the emotional toll of this. So not only was COVID running rampant and causing this effect on people, we have to also deal with the nature of the area that we teach, and that's causing a lot of stress. I just left a faculty meeting, and I'm certain they don't mind me hearing this, but even the principal said, this has been the most tumultuous year I have ever been an educator. And she's been in education for a lot of years. So we have to, I think it's imperative that we understand teachers did not get into this profession. Educators did not get into the profession of educating students to ruin lives. We got in there to save lives. And right now we feel like we're on a treadmill where we're running and running and running and getting tired, but we're not going anywhere. So an effort to allow us to go somewhere, you have to bring us to the table and allow us as educators to start helping to shape the decisions that are being made within the districts. I know that when we advocated and we celebrated ESSA when it came out, we were told, yes, ESSA is going to give educators a voice and all of that, but yet it's been turned somehow into a gotcha type program, which it never was intended to be. So it feels more like piling on again, like NCLB had become.
Any follow-up questions? So thank you, first of all, for sharing your thoughts and your feelings from your perspectives. And, I walked away with a lot, especially the many challenges that you're facing at the school level, at the district level. And I walked away hearing about the feedback loop. So my question would be, how would you imagine that the feedback loop would look for teachers to be able to express some of the things that you've expressed here today in a way that could be impactful?
Having more opportunities for us to use our voice, because we teach our students how to use our voice. And giving us an agenda and letting us see the agenda before we get to the meeting, so we can actually do research and have input on what's occurring, because that's the whole problem. This whole system needs to evolve. So as teachers, we have to evolve. We have to change. We've had to evolve during this pandemic. There were several teachers that were not comfortable with technology. But guess what? When we were given Schoology, and you better learn it, and you need to know it, we had to evolve. So we're always in a position where we have to evolve, but others don't have to evolve. So we need to evolve together if we're going to see change. And change is, uncomfortable for people because we do what's comfortable. But the things that we're doing are not working. So that kind of makes us all insane.
All right. To directly answer the question, I believe it's imperative that the ones who are in power, who can make decisions for us, be educators like us. I feel we have a lot of legislators and elected officials and appointed officials who make decisions, but they're not educators at all. So that takes the onus from us of the decisions that are being made and puts it on them, and they then make these decisions that as educators we know harm students more than it helps them. So the first thing that we can do is put people who are educators in position of authority to make educational decisions. Even more than that, I feel districts should be given more autonomy to make decisions. And I know Little Rock is in its own specific type of situation, but when you look across the board, many districts across this state have been put into positions where the educators don't necessarily get to make decisions for what's best for them. Having that personal onus and having personal responsibility of the education that you're going to provide in the classroom provides a lot of cushion, if you will, for teachers and to be able to actually teach and impact students. Because how I teach my students have to look different than how someone in South Arkansas probably teach their students. And saying that we all have to have this cookie cutter type of education system, it doesn't work. So when we are saying that we need to hear more educator voice, that means that we within districts should have the autonomy to really teach and shape the curriculum within our districts, and we have not been given that or afforded that opportunity. We have to fight for the time that we can go to the restroom, let alone we have to fight for the books we want to teach in class, or the social and emotional way that we choose to handle discipline within our classrooms. So I feel it has become very prescriptive, if you will, if I can use that terminology here, within our classrooms that restricts us from being able to do anything. So you must have educators in positions of power, and you have to give teachers time to teach and the autonomy to do so.
I agree with both of my colleagues. I believe educators are as diverse as our students. Our thought process, the way we approach problems, we reflect our student body. And I do believe the feedback will vary. I agree with what Roy said when it comes to the autonomy. The way you teach in Dumas may not be the way you teach in Little Rock or North Little Rock, or the way you teach in Mena. Just the way you approach and the examples you give will be very different. And we know that, I go right back to career and tech education, just based on the programs you're able to offer. You can offer Agri in Mount Home. Don't try that in North Little Rock. You're not going to get the response you need. So it has to be very personalized for the district for the type of feedback and response that you would receive.
Thank you. And, you brought up how educators are as diverse as their student body. And you also said that the first time that you saw a black male educator was when you were in high school. And so we're talking about lawmakers and policy makers. And I would like to point out that during the 2021 legislative session, we did have some very good, successful pieces of legislation that are benefiting education. We were able to have Act 513, which, you know, expands the eligibility for teaching licenses to Dreamers with the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival status, as well as we also have Act 646, where administrators are encouraged to have a recruitment and retention plan to ensure that their school employee workforce is reflective of their student environment, their student population. So we're working on those things, but we know that there's still work to be done. So thank you for bringing that up, but I did want to point out that we have had some successes in those areas, but there is still work to be done. You brought up the fact that there's more violence that we're seeing, and yes, that then causes us to talk about school safety and what we can do to have a safe learning environment for our students, which also reflects a safe working environment for our students. So could you speak a little bit about that for us?
We got word this afternoon that we lost a student as well. So I can absolutely understand my colleagues' feelings. Yesterday, we found a weapon on campus. And I'm being very, very careful with my words here. I've heard people want to blame it on education, saying, well, what are the students learning? I've heard people say, well, it's the economy. Okay, we already know whenever the economy goes down, violence goes up. And with COVID, the economy was forced down. But yet, even though the economy was forced down, we know there's going to be an uptick in violence. We push those students back into the classroom. And then people act surprised that there's an uptick in violence and disruptions in the classroom. This is economics 101. We can't be blind to what we're seeing here. The solutions for it comes not just by educating the students, but by also educating the parents. I believe schools have to be holistic, not just for children, but also for adults. Look at the number of adults. I just want to hear a survey. Someone somewhere in this state do a survey of the number of our parents that have completed high school versus the number of parents that have students that are enrolled in our schools. If your area in your district has a higher graduation rate than it does adults that have a high school diploma, you don't just have an education problem, you have an economic problem, you have an outreach problem, you have a legislative problem. And then that in turn can show you and solve other issues that are going on. Because if you don't have a proper education, you don't know what your options are. And if you don't know what your options are, you would do anything to try to make ends meet. And I've seen students, when I taught 3 years ALE, I've seen students in class pull out just a wad of money just like this. I know you didn't get that at McDonald's. I know you didn't get that at Burger King. And so since I did not see the activity that I think led to that, I cannot address that activity, but I can talk to you about character decisions. I can talk to you about different things that influence, and then ask the student, where's your father? Where's your mother? And we see that displacement, and so we're so concerned about getting enrollment up. We're concerned about disruption in the classroom, making sure that our school letter grade looks good. Okay, I get that part, because that's what administration is based on. And as long as those superintendents can keep 4 votes on the board, they're going to keep their jobs. But as soon as your enrollment goes down in your program of study or in your classroom, we want to consolidate and have higher number of students in the classroom. It's backwards. It is very backwards. So we have to look at the community. We have to say, what can our school districts do to serve our community beyond just our children?
All right, and speaking to your question about violence, I think our schools should be more proactive than reactive. Right now, I feel like we're reactive. We create rules that are reactionary. We're not forward thinking. If we plan for things, we usually don't have those things, but we wait until things get really bad, and we start to try to make decisions that make changes. Just like you were talking about, making sure that we can, study our communities and see what the needs are in the community. And that's what the big push with community schools should be doing. That's that work. However, we're not proactive. We're just reacting to everything. Students are dying. Okay, now we need to come up with a program that helps students stay in school. Teachers are being stressed out and burned out. Oh, now we have to come up with things that because we know teachers are going to get burned out. So what are we going to do? We know that violence is ticking up in our community. How are we going to keep the schools safe? And what are we doing for these students who have been victims of violence? We have to start forward thinking things and not just waiting until it comes to our doors. And I can only speak for the school which I teach at now, or the school district I teach in. We saw the numbers in our community for violence going up long before we start seeing that violence come into our school buildings. We made no plan. We did nothing to prepare for this situation. Now we're here. And what are we doing? We're just going to try to let it play out in the community, or we're going to wait until something bad happens in our building. We have to start being proactive instead of reactive.
So when you just stated we wait until something bad happens in our building, is what happened in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I personally advocated. I personally emailed the superintendent my concerns about the social emotional learning, about the violence that was occurring in that city. And I was shut down and I was shut out. I went back again and voiced my opinion because I had a concern. Now we fast forward and it takes kids walking out of schools for us to say, oh, it's something going on. It shouldn't take that. They're afraid. I talked to a student last week. He didn't even know what trauma was. And I asked him, has somebody talked to you at your school? And he has a cast on his arm. I said, what happened to your arm? I got shot. Friend was murdered. No one has pulled him aside and talked to him. We just expect kids to just go with the flow. As if this is we've normalized this because of who it is affecting. It's affecting African American students. Boys and girls are being affected. And they are the ones that make up the majority of the schools, the demographics in Central Arkansas. But we're not having those uncomfortable conversations that need to be had. We're not building the capacity of their families. The surveys that he referred to, we make up all these plans, but we never ask people, what do you need? We just give them what we think they need. We don't ask, what do you actually need? How can I help you? Because there are a lot of resources that we do have access to, but two, because we have not developed relationships with people, because that is something that really matters, and developing relationships takes time that none of us have. We're here right now after school. This is our time. And a lot of teachers don't have time, especially when you have your own family at home that you got to go home and deal with your kids or deal with your parents or take care of a loved one or whatever that may be. We need time to develop relationships, authentic relationships, intentional relationships, and ask people what they need. Because until we really help families, until we support parents the way that they need to be supported, a lot of what we do is null and void. We'll reach some, but we can get more. if we attack the root of the problem.
So I'm hearing a lot of community involvement and parental involvement. And as you know, Arkansas has passed a Community Schools Act here in the state during the 2021 legislative session. And that's one of our initiatives here at the Arkansas Education Association. With the community school model, is that going to address the holistic approach? Is that going to address ensuring that we have the economic development in our communities? What are your thoughts on that?
All right, with respect to the community schools model, if community schools are rolled out in the way that they're supposed to be, I see that it could help. However, what I'm seeing that we're calling community schools are not necessarily community schools, not in any of the ways that NEA has taught. We're just kind of making up our own thing and saying community schools on it. I don't think that that's an effective way to do it. Now, if in fact community schools are rolled out with fidelity in the way that NEA has rolled about, in the way that we have studied across the nation, community schools working, I think, yes, it will address some of those problems. But remember, we talked about having prescriptive methods. Cookie cutter does not work. And that's one of the tenets of that community school model, accessing the data for that community and creating access points within the schools that allow parents to get their needs met physically, socially, and emotionally, and also having those students having their needs being met. Creating programs that train parents in the way that in job market training, having opportunities for parents to create resumes so that they can find adequate jobs to really support their families. Those are all things that we know work within community schools. That's not what I'm seeing being rolled out right now. However, I can't speak for every school district and every program that's out there, but I know cookie cutter does not work, and creating a menagerie of a mess, throwing in cornmeal and calling it a cake is not a cake. All right, unless there is a cornmeal cake. I don't think so. I know it's supposed to be flour, but if we throw cornmeal in there, I don't think it's a cake anymore. It's kind of cornbread. So, I knew there's some kind of cake with. Okay, well, we're gonna pretend that you can't put any cornmeal in a cake. That was my that was the example that I was trying to use. You know, I can go and stand in a garage and can't call myself a car. I think that's a better one. All right. So there we go. All right, let's wait.
Oh, you.
All right.
I guess I took too much time talking.
No, and that's fine. And, you know, we don't have many community schools in the state. We currently only have 2 school districts that are implementing the community school model. The plan, 2 school districts. 2 school districts. That would be Batesville School District and Little Rock School District, but the plan is to roll it out into more. And Candace Williams with the Rural Education Association is working along with Forward Arkansas and the National Education Association Foundation, as well as AEA, to roll it out into some of our rural school districts. So that, and you had mentioned Pine Bluff, and Pine Bluff is a school district that has been, there's been talks about trying to roll it out in Pine Bluff. And I know that there's been a lot of concern, not just in Central Arkansas and also in South Arkansas, regarding violence and the social emotional needs of our children. Did you want to add anything?
So I heard a lot of, again, thank you for just the candidness. and just expressing the needs even of teachers. And that resonated with me as you were speaking. You talked a lot about social emotional supports for students, but also self-care for teachers. And so we are embarking on some support at the state level, but I want to hear from you. When you think about teacher self-care, how would you envision that school systems and the state could support teacher self-care? Just want to hear from you.
There are a few organizations that are doing that. I know one that is affiliated with AEA, Teacher Support Teachers out of Texarkana, is one that does focus on teacher self-care. And you have to do that, because if teachers aren't focused on self-care, they get burned out. And I think everyone that has taught in the past 2 or 3 years has experienced burnout in one way or another. It has to have more funding, because you have to show teachers that you can't do it 1 week out of the year and say, oh, we love you. And at the end of the school year, during testing, I'm high school, so I can say that. During testing, AP testing, your ACT Aspire testing, we don't feel appreciated during this time. We feel overworked. And so you want to call us out, to give us a cupcake. No, we're busy right now. Do this, before spring break. But I think it has to be more recognition there. And it could be in the form of greater than just your discounts. It could be in the form of additional tuition assistance to allow teachers to go back to school to get additional certifications. It can be, I know everybody's talking about student loan debt reduction. It could be something along those lines. Anything to show more appreciation rather than the same old, same old. It can't be cookie cutter, as Roy was saying. It has to be something different, something above and beyond the norm.
Well, when I hear teacher self-care, I think about my colleagues and I who have experienced burnout, and they take off for a mental health day and come back and are called into the office because you've taken too many days because your child is sick, but you're still working at home. Even if you're off, you're still uploading lessons and all of that. I think some real discussions have to be had about how you address teacher mental health. Maybe school districts offer counseling for teachers, or perhaps teachers are given a certain number of their sick days that they can take as mental health days, because I feel right now we are at a point where a lot of teachers are at their tipping point. When you hear a truck backfire and everybody start to run in the classrooms, when students have places, I'm trying not to get over emotional. When students have places that they know they can hide in your classrooms because they've hidden there before, because we have had to go on lockdown because of guns and violence. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. I feel and nothing is being said to address the teach. Like when a teacher feels so much of a threat that they have to protect these 25 lives or 30 lives that's in their classroom, and then you're expected to come back to work the next day like nothing happened, and then for them to say, oh, it wasn't a real gun, but for me, it was a real gun. They were shooting kids on campus in my mind because that's what I'm supposed to do to protect the kids. And to have that happen and nothing be addressed with educators or anything, it's just like, oh, everything is fine. We're not fine. Our kids are not fine. We have to create some means of counseling that helps children and educators. Because even just talking about it, I went back there.
Because it's been normalized. And there's nothing normal about a teacher having to protect their students in a situation where there may be a shooter or they're in your building. That's not normal. as he stated, mental health days, and you can actually say, hey, I need a mental health day. And not just put in a sick day or use your personal day. But we don't have the opportunity to be honest about how we feel. And that's not okay. Because we are human beings. We are not robots. And we are treated like robots. It's how we're treated. Just, no, you shut up and teach. You shut up and do what you're supposed to do. Don't ask any questions. Do what I told you to do. And that's not how we want our students to be. That's not how I instruct my students. I want them to be thinkers. I want them to be creative. And you have to allow us spaces to do so. Like when we had the 4-day week, that worked for me. Because that one day we had an opportunity to collaborate. We had an opportunity to build those relationships with parents, to call them and check in and let them know, this is going on. This is what we need. How can I help you? Are you okay? We need time to do that. And adding more things to our schedule does not support teachers. We need massage therapists in the building. I want somebody to rub on my shoulders. Like, seriously, to relax me. Or yoga. Offer these things, these relaxation moments, or just mental breaks. So like mental breaks during the day. If we just did a mental break where everybody just stopped and the whole school did a mental break. A mental recess. And I'm not talking about kids going outside, running around on the playground. No. Where we sit there and we decompress. We need that. And oftentimes we just don't have that because we don't have the time. But that's some of the things we can just start right there. And it does take funding to do so. So that needs to be a priority, included in the budget, not an afterthought.
All right, and one last thing. I realized I was kind of over emotional on that last one, but I really went there. But I feel it's important for us also to not have people from the top say, well, if you don't want to be an educator, don't be. I mean, we're not saying we don't want to do the work. We're saying that it's hard right now and we need some support. When Latoya talked about having those, massages and all of that, I don't. That would be very nice. That's kind of wishful. But I do think mindfulness training would help in a lot of buildings. We recently did that, and those mindfulness techniques that we were taught, I've been employing, and they've been kind of helping me out. So I feel like mindfulness training might be something that teachers are offered.
All right, thank you. That's valuable information. Very valuable. And, some of the things that AEA is doing, like even tonight at 7 o'clock, we have a Stress Buster event that we are going to be participating in with educators from across the state, because we recognize how important it is to have that mental break. We're not massaging tonight, but we do have a Stress Buster event, and and it will to bring out some laughter and to help relieve the stress. You're talking about so many of the things that are impacting educators and the burnout. And with the burnout, we're seeing that a lot of our educators are leaving the profession. They are retiring early or completely leaving the profession. And we're not talking just about our early career educators, those that are in their first 5 years of education, but those that are in the mid-level of their career, or even our seasoned educators. And so, NEA did a survey. NEA loves to do surveys. And teacher burnout is at an all-time high, but educator burnout is also at an all-time high because we see shortages with our school bus drivers, with our cafeteria workers, our nutritionists, with our school counselors, our school nurses. So how is this shortage affecting you, your colleagues, your school, and what are some of your thoughts that we could put in place to attract more individuals to the profession, because we are seeing a lower decline in enrollment going into the profession?
In our building, we are not just short teachers, we are short subs. Our campus supervisors are filling in as subs. Yesterday, we had a dean of students in ISS because we were short even there. So it's not just burnout, it's overwork. It's not enough staff, not enough interest. You can't even get enough people that want to come sub because of the environment, because of the violence, as we just spoke of, because of the perception of education at this time. They don't want to be exposed to COVID. They don't want to be exposed to children that they can't control. And when you're short-staffed, your discipline will just go out of control. So I think one way to really bring educators into the fold, or new educators, show them, make education fun again. Show them what it means to be an educator. Because one thing we see right now, everybody wants to make a difference, right? We hear that. We say, I want to make a difference. I want to be positive. And we have, nonprofits popping up everywhere. But who's saying this is a place where you can really make a difference now? We don't see that. So it has to be rebranded. We have to rebrand what it means to be a teacher. It's not just about coming in, taking roll, and then writing people up. That's not what it is. Show them you're actually making an impact. And if it's marketed that way, not just from a state level, but also from our colleges of education, as well as our school districts, make it a campaign. Just like people campaign for office, campaign for your teachers. Show them this is the place to make a difference.
Well, I'm going to speak to the elephant in the room, money. It's hard to attract millennial educators when you can literally make quadruple the amount of money an educator can make just by posting funny YouTube videos and Instagram and all of that. So, and also we have a lot more of an entrepreneurial spirit happening now, where people realize that they can make more money working for themselves than they can in the classroom. So number one, you have to pay educators what they're worth. And I realize that there's been a real campaign to get first-year educators, salaries to be competitive. But what about the seasoned educators? Educator salaries are not competitive across the board. For someone who works in a profession for 18 years, has a master's degree plus, my salary is definitely not comparable to my good friend who worked in the military for 18 years, spent his time doing that, has a master's degree, and now he's retired at 42 with way more money than I will ever probably make as an educator. Now, I realize that some things are about career choices. However, being an educator should be valued at least at the same level as our armed forces, because we train them too.
If you make schools safe, people or teachers or potential teachers or educators will come to the profession. I don't know a single person in this room that will walk into a burning house and you're not a firefighter. But essentially, that's what we do on a daily basis. About the money. This field, and I'm the only woman on this side over here, but it's dominated 76.5% of the educators in this state are women. It's time to address compensation. Because if this field was dominated by men, we would not be having this conversation. It wouldn't even be up for discussion. Our voice would be heard. Sign-on bonuses. We give nurses sign-on bonuses. We give doctors sign-on bonuses. We give truck drivers sign-on bonuses. But teachers, no sign-on bonus. Just come on. Run into the burning house. We might pull you out. We might not. That would attract me. Last but not least, just show us that you care. It's simple.
You know, I always end up talking twice. I don't know why, but I just thought about this. You know, just today in our faculty meeting, we were told that we had to, our principals asked to get rid of 3 math teachers and 3 English teachers. In addition, we lost half of our Title I funds, and we're projected to have more students this year than we had last year. That's why educators are jumping ship. We're asked to do more with even less than we already had. So I think that's another reason. Compensation, but also we're asked to do way more with less resources and also for less pay.
I know they've given us awful lot to think about. All right, so final question before we wrap up. So is there anything else you would like to share with us regarding Arkansas students and how we can help you? And I know we have really run the gamut.
I do. So as a media specialist, let's fight against banning books that cancel history. Whether you consider it good or bad, it happened. And students deserve the right to know about it. Also, I'm advocating here for media specialists again. Across the state, we are being asked to be testing coordinators. If I am put in the building, and it's supposed to be the hub, the library is the hub of the building. You come, I wear 15 hats. Sometimes it's on my head, sometimes it's on the side of my head, but I wear the hat. If we're being asked to be testing coordinators, how are we supposed to efficiently do the job that we were hired to do? That's all I got.
All right, in the same vein, I feel it's imperative that we discuss journalism education and the right for every student to be able to take the course. You know, as you know, a few years ago, we went and testified, we talked, and we tried to advocate for journalism education to not be removed as a required course to be taught within every district. We lost that fight, but I feel it's imperative that we get back to that because we are seeing so much being said on the news about what is fake news and what is good news, bad news, all of that. We owe it to our kids to teach them how to actually read news and how to ingest news. Further than that, I feel it's imperative that we all, as educators, choose every day to be great. You know, As an educator, every morning I wake up, sometimes I don't want to go to work or don't want to go to school. I choose every day to get up and be great for kids. And I want legislators, I want the Department of Ed to know that most educators, I can't speak for all because I'm not all of them, but the ones that I know do not wake up every day to be less than stellar for their kids. So we wake up daily to be great.
Okay, they got a media specialist in journalism. I'm going for career in tech. Everybody knows me, know I will. Okay, career and technical education, I'll be very specific. DCTE needs to move from 5 occupational areas to the 16 career clusters. Each of the 16 career clusters must align with the Bureau of Labor Statistics for their region within the state. And each one of the high schools that aligns with that must have direct industry partners that partner with one of the 2-year community colleges within the state. That way, each and every high school in the state of Arkansas, students will have access to concurrent credit through career and technical education. And I'm done.
Oh my goodness, yes. Thank you. And I appreciate the fact that our experts tonight represent areas within education that we don't always hear their voices. So, I mean, CTE, career and technical education, that is so, so important. Journalism, you're in the arts. And, you know, and the arts are so important for our students. And, you know, our library media specialists, you know, our specialized instructional support professionals, you know, it's so important to hear those voices. So I want to thank you for participating, for bringing your voice, the voice of your fellow colleagues that are here in Central Arkansas, to share with us here at the Arkansas Education Association, as well as our special guest, Dr. Kiffany Pride with the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. This was great. It was very enlightening. I encourage that we have educators throughout the state, local presidents, work with your local administration, work with your local school boards, contact your UNISERV director. AEA is a resource for you. You can go to www.aeaonline.org/contact, and you can fill out a contact form, and we will be happy to try to set up one of these listening events within your area. Or you could also contact your UNISERV director directly, and you could even contact AEA 501-375-4611, and we will be happy to set that up for you. But again, we need to hear from more educators like you. We need that collective, strong voice. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for waking up every morning to be great for your students. Thank you for your commitment, your resilience, and being inspiring. I think that wraps up with what you began. So do you have any final words?
Well, I just want to say I'm inspired leaving here, and I think it's Latoya that said, just show us that you care, and so that resonates with me. But I want you to know that, you know, there's a body of educators at the department who wake up every day and advocate for media specialists, for journalism, and I was a newspaper editor in high school, so I resonate with the importance of that, and I attribute it to a lot of the skills that I have that I demonstrate daily. And CTE, so you know, I work with CTE. Sometimes we partner to do some things, so we're listening, we care, we appreciate you. Believe me, I got a notebook full. When I go back, I'm going to be sharing some of your messages with my leadership, with my team, who is all about learning, teaching and learning and assessment. And so we are listening, and you will see some things coming forward out of the State Department that is reflective of the supports that you need. And I always want to extend to you, reach out. I answer my own phone. I don't transfer it to anywhere else, so that I can get the calls from teachers and from stakeholder groups. So again, thank you so much for this invitation, President Fleming, and you've given us lots of things to go back and to continue the work that's been started. So thanks again.
Thank you. And I hope that everyone continues to enjoy their Teacher Educator Appreciation Week. And you're right, Patrick, when you said that it needs to be more than just one day for National Teacher Appreciation Day, and it needs to be more than 1 week. We need to be celebrating the work that our educators do year-round. You know, Friday was National School Bus Driver Appreciation Day. We also had Administrative Assistant Day last week. May 18th is National Speech Pathologist Day. So, of course, you know, as a speech language pathologist, I have to bring that one up. So, but we should be celebrating the work that we do every single day. So, thank you. Thank you, members of AEA, and again, thank you to the department. We appreciate you. It's so important for us to continue to collaborate together, and have a great evening.